Welcome, everyone, to the HVAC 2.0 show. I'm Nate Adams, the CEO, and joined here by a full house tonight. So we got Mr. TK in the top.
Howdy.
He serves as our drill sergeant. And right below him, Reedy, Mr. Super Awesome Guy in North Carolina. And then Mr. Ken Dean. What do you have on there tonight? The big D? And
boy.
I is greater than you. Love it. The t-shirt. Ken always has good t-shirts. I've got one on today that says "Me sarcastic never." Jeff Howard in Indianapolis, Abby from Canada, Winnipeg specifically, and Mr. Tanner Dickerson from Northern Alabama. So full house tonight. So last week we did a free quote role play. We're going to do one this week too, but we're going to do it in a different way. We're going to be fast. So last week was kind of drawing out and showing like what could happen if you didn't have your prep work done ahead of time. So we're going to show how they can be zippy if you get your clients to fill out the quiz first. And so this is what we're going to do. So the comfort quiz is going to be filled out. Mr. Jeff is going to be interviewing me in a rather short and terse manner to show what the opposite end of the spectrum might look like versus Reedy, being, I don't know, just such a nice, kind, gentle guy. Not that you aren't a kind and gentle guy, Jeff, but you do have a little more of an edge.
He's not kind and gentle. Don't fool nobody.
It depends on the setting, but yeah, it's all good. And then I went and filled some stuff out within this as well, so it's fast. And so here's the free quote. It's 3 different things that we're really trying to do: client education. So we went over the videos last week. We're going to skip that this week. So there's a 90-second video on static pressure, or duct pressure as we call it, because that controls so much of the quality of an install. Consistency is you ask the same questions every time, and responsibly avoiding responsibility so that you don't end up owning stuff that you shouldn't. And that leads to the best solution for every client. That's really the goal, is how do we give them a choose your own adventure where we help them make the best decision for them. All right, so here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to look at the home real quick look at the report, look at the questionnaire, data entry, build the options, and then come back to the report and chat on that again. So here's the overview of the house. So we are pretending I'm in Indianapolis right now, where they have lots of boxy houses. So it's a 2-story house on a slab, which in Cleveland, I have never seen actually, but super common in Indy. 3,116 square feet. It's got an 80K 92% furnace, a 3.5-ton air conditioner, and their comfort quiz score was low. So I think I set it up as a 6. And that's really good enough for now. Let me flip over to take a quick look at the report. So this is live. We're looking at it. So it still has some bugs in it, but it's nice that it's at least useful. It doesn't break all the time anymore. It took a few months to get it there. So this has a very low comfort quiz score. So this is asking the 4 questions. Are there hot rooms? Are there cold rooms? Are there health issues? Are there moisture or pest issues? And this client didn't give any extra info and very low scores. You're going to see this a lot. I entered in a likely load range for this, which right now is manual, but very shortly it won't be. But this helps you show clients that, look, a load calc can vary a lot. This is meant to capture, say, 90% of what system sizing could be out there. And then in cooling, it can be anywhere between 2 and 5 tons. Just again, this is showing kind of a broad range, but you could potentially see numbers like that. And this helps you show your clients that without extra information, a load calculation can have quite a bit of variance to it. So choosing the right size piece of equipment when you don't know extra information is difficult, if not impossible. And I don't think anybody here would argue that. Any backup comments to that, gents? It's Abby shaking his head.
Silence.
Tanner, come on, you always have an opinion, Tanner. What's the load? What's the load on a house if you don't know anything about it?
I don't know, somewhere between 1 and 10 tons.
Okay, great.
Whatever the customer wants.
There you go, Ken. That's exactly it.
Whatever
there's a chart
have.
of
Whatever the size the house identifies as needing.
sure thing, Mr. Attack Helicopter. All right. Charts duct pressure, which just isn't working quite right here. And we don't have any signature yet because we didn't go through it. And then this is kind of the important pieces. You get to show different equipment options and then different install options along with what they get and don't get depending on the piece of equipment and the install option that they choose. So when you walk through all of this, you can have a really nice conversation with them. And now you've really stood out in their minds because you've asked a whole bunch of questions. You offered them testing and you're giving them options that aren't just, well, this is more efficient. You're helping them genuinely understand which way to go. Okay. So, Mr. Jeff, we're going to run this in kind of a weird way. So you get to ask me questions. And I'm going to act kind of strange because I'm sharing screen. I'm going to type them in. So carry it away. And if I'm not scrolling fast enough, crack the whip at me. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're knock on the door.
Hello.
Hi. Are you Nate?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Nate. It's nice to meet you. I'm Jeff. I'm here for your free quote. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Fantastic. Is it okay if I come in?
Please do.
All right. Thank you. Is there someplace comfortable we can sit?
Yeah, let's go sit down at the kitchen table.
Okay. Fantastic. Show me the way. Did you read the what to expect email that was sent to you prior to my arrival today?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Fantastic. And how long did you set aside for today's visit?
Well, you said 45 to 90 minutes, so I set aside 90.
90 minutes? Fantastic. Again, just want to make sure that we prioritize your time, my time, and we get through this as quickly as we can for you or within your time frame. Mind if we go over your comfort quiz?
Not at all.
All right. So I see that you did send that in, and we're just going to go over them real quick. So parts of your house during the summer, since we're still in the summer now, looks like you only scored at about a 2. You didn't make any comments or anything, so I assume there's no issues. Is that correct?
The house seems pretty good. It's the best one I've been in.
Okay. Fantastic. Now, what about the winter? Tell me about that.
Not really any significant issues either. I mean, sometimes a couple degrees here, a couple degrees there, but it's still better than anything I've been in.
Okay. So that 2 that you put down is accurate still?
Yes.
All right. And then any health concerns in your home? It looks like you put it at a 1. Would you say that's still correct?
Yeah, nobody has allergies or asthma in the house.
Okay. And no mold or mildew or any issues like that as well, right?
Nope, it's not that old, so it doesn't seem like it's a problem.
Okay. So you scored that as a 1 as well. So, all right. Perfect. Thank you for going over that with me. So, are there any other concerns that you're hoping your new system might address today? Or your new system when we get it put in?
It's a little bit noisy sometimes when it turns on.
Okay. Only when it turns on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me make that note here. So that being said, are there any rebates or incentives that you're hoping to take advantage of?
No. Are there any that I should be aware of?
I mean, you probably know as much as I do on them. So what we'll do is we'll look at some things and see if we can give you any information. Is that something you're interested in?
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to see what the options are.
All right. You mind if we go over a few other questions?
Not at all.
How long have you lived in the home?
2 years.
2 years? How long do you plan on staying?
10 or so. Going to wait till the
10
kids
or
are out
so?
of high school.
Okay. All right. What year is the house built?
What was it, about 2008?
2008. And what about square feet? Do you know that?
It's a little over 3,000, 3,100 or so.
Okay. And as I walked up, it looked like you have 2 stories. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And do you have a basement or is this on a slab?
It's on a slab.
Okay. All right. Do either of you work from home?
I do.
You do? All right.
Yep.
And where do you usually work?
At the dining room table usually.
Okay. That's most of the time it's there. Is it uncomfortable or do you have any comfort issues in that space?
Not really.
And I noticed that when I asked you the comfort quiz there, you said when the unit starts up, it has some noise. Is that the only time when it starts up that there's any noise concerns?
Yeah, and it's the fan in particular I notice when it turns on. I guess sometimes the air conditioner is noisy when it kicks, but it's the fan I notice more.
Okay. So the fan, is it only when it kicks on or is it when it runs?
It's when it runs actually.
Okay.
It doesn't run that long.
Doesn't run that long. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. And what temperature do you like to keep your thermostat set to in the summer?
We are about 72-degree people.
Is that all the time or does it vary?
Uh, at night we'll turn it down to 69.
Okay. And why do you do that?
Makes it easier to sleep.
Makes it easier to sleep. Bedrooms upstairs, I'm assuming.
Yeah, master's upstairs.
Right. Now, what about the winter? What temperature do you keep it set to?
It's 70 almost all the time. We'll dial it back a little bit at night though.
Okay. How far do you go down at night?
69 again.
69 again. So just a degree or so there.
Mhm.
And those set points, do you do it for comfort reasons or energy reasons?
Comfort, like I said, this is one of the most comfortable houses I've had.
Okay. And who in the home may have allergies? I know you said nobody did, but I mean, anything seasonal, anything pick up here and there?
I mean, some springs and falls are bad, others aren't for me. But I mean, it's nothing that a box of Kleenex and a couple of pills can't take care of.
Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me know that. And then during the winter, any dry skin or anything? You notice any of that? I know you said it's the most comfortable house you've been in, but
Sometimes my wife will complain about it. She uses a lot of chapstick and sometimes some lotion.
okay. Nosebleeds or dry, like cracked skin or anything like that? No bleeding?
Um, well, I mean, chapstick sometimes is for chapped lips, but nothing more serious than that.
All right. What about any pest issues? Have you had any, such as mice, rodents, ants, other insects?
Sometimes we get ants. Actually, we've got a little bit of an issue right now.
All right. Where's that?
It's the back of the house.
Back of the house? Any particular spot or just all over the back of the house?
Seems to generally be the back. Sometimes it's a little bit wet back there after a rain. Maybe that's it.
Is that water stand or pool?
Not really, but it's squishy.
Okay.
When I walk out there, squishier than the rest of the yard.
Have you noticed mold or mildew anywhere?
No, I haven't.
What about musty smells?
Unless you count me in the bathroom.
Yeah, we won't count that one. We'll leave that one out.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, no. It's like I said. It's been a pretty nice house to us.
Okay. So, do you currently know what size equipment you have?
Nope. And by the way, we talked about this breaking fourth wall for a minute last week. We were like, we hate these questions here. These need to go somewhere else. So we're going to skip these for tonight, and maybe we'll come back to them later. Just trying to open the sizing discussion, but it's too early. All right.
We're gonna
Apologies.
skip that next question. Nope, that
Yep.
question right there is perfect. I'm fine with that one. So, you said most comfortable house you've ever been in. If we change this equipment, right, and when we do, and everything stays the same, you're perfectly okay with that,
I would be actually.
even the noise.
Oh, you had to bring up the noise. It would be nice if it was a little bit quieter.
Okay. Now, have you ever replaced an HVAC system before?
I haven't.
So no sense of kind of what they cost these days or the range that they're in.
No, I'm doing a 3-quote routine. So you know the deal.
Yep. So imagine you had a magic wand and you could change anything in your home with how it feels or sounds like. What would that look like?
Just the sound a little bit quieter. I'd like to not ever know that fan's on.
All right. So now you back earlier, you said that you had read our what to expect email, right? So one of those mentioning videos inside of that email was our duct pressure video. Did you get a chance to watch that?
I did.
You did?
Understanding it's probably related to noise, I'd like that test.
Okay. So you don't want to watch the video again, right?
Nope, I'm good.
And you do want us to do that test today. So what I'll do is have you sign right here, just saying you accepted that I can drill some test port plugs and check that duct pressure for you. Thank you.
If it will confirm. No.
Also
great.
in that email, there was another video that talks about the 6 things that every HVAC system should have. Did you get a chance to watch that?
I did. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Okay. So again, we don't want to watch that together right now, right?
No, not a big deal.
All right. So when you watch both of those, can you kind of tell me a little bit of feedback, what you thought about those?
So the load matching part was kind of interesting. You know, a shower versus a bucket of water over the head.
Okay. So that being said, and going over some of these questions, have any of your comfort quiz scores changed?
Not really. Like I said, it's still pretty comfy, but I don't know. It was interesting to learn a few differences.
All right. So that's it for the interview portion right now. What I'd like to do is here in a second, go check everything, have you show me around the house. We're going to look at the thermostat, go to the equipment. But before I do that, is there anything that I missed or anything that you thought of?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, fantastic. If you wouldn't mind, let's start at the thermostat.
Great. And so that was about 10 minutes. Somewhere in that ballpark. So that's not too bad. So if they go quick, they can go quick. But make sure you get your homework done up front. All right. So I click the go to measurements section here. So you can go back and forth between these. See down over here, there's a button for back to free quote. So it takes me back here, it takes you to the top. So then you have to scroll back down. But then you can click equipment measurements. Also something to note for newbies, you can click show hints, and every question tells you about what's going on behind the scenes there so that you can understand why you're asking those questions. But back to equipment measurements. Lots of tools have something along these lines. This one does too. So here's your brand, model, and serial, all that good stuff. So that's the indoor. Then there's the outdoor. This system is predicated on the indoor unit because in North American systems, it's the furnace. Like if you only have one thing, you probably only have a furnace. So that's how we predicated that. And then you can take notes on the electrical service. So just letting you know that this is in here. But let's do the part that Jeff actually had a ton of feedback on here, which is equipment measurements.
1 second, Nate, before we go there, I just wanted to point out there's a really good comment in the chat.
Oh, great. Thank you for hipping me to that because I can't see it with the screen that I'm running right now. So heating, cooling services. Have you all ever had homeowners think that something's wrong when they can't hear the system? Everything's working flawlessly. Temps even 50% silent, but it's not blowing the curtains around. I haven't, but personally, I've cheated on that. And when I get the system up and running, I go find the lady of the house, turn it to 100% and say, hey, is this noisy? And the usual question is it running? And then their expectations have been reset. But I can imagine if you didn't set expectations. Jeff, thoughts?
Yeah, I've only had one person that ever had that issue, and he literally wanted his registers to be blowing out. So what we did is did a lot of restrictions, and it was literally blowing his register, his wooden register, up and down as the system would run. So only one time, never again. But kind of similar. You know, we set that expectation up front, and then when we go to replace the system, we let them know depending on the situation, that hey, you may not hear this thing, but it's still running. What we're really concerned about is the overall comfort and the thermostat set point and everything.
But that's a good question. I have heard of a few people do that, put in like fully communicating systems. They get a complaint from it and they lock it on high, which is such a shame to pay all the extra money for a better system and then not use the stages. But not super common.
One of my friends, his in-laws put in, pardon me, a multi-stage heat pump after taking out their old oil system that was like 25 years old. And these people are seniors, right? And so for them, they're just so used to like the system kicking on and the whole house like rattling and shaking, and you can hear and you can feel it. And so when this system, like even though like the comment says you walk into the house in the room and it's warm and comfortable, without it blowing on their face, they were like, is this thing even working? Is it supposed to be doing this thing? And so I can imagine a lot of people, and it was installed by obviously not an HVAC 2.0 person, but if you don't do enough, I guess, customer education and stuff, some people I can easily see getting really confused by the new system.
I've had two very different sides of that equation. One, the people didn't want to hear their equipment because they were so tired of sitting watching TV with the remote control on their lap. Mm-hmm. And they had a short cycling piece of equipment, so they actually had to turn the volume up like every 5 minutes when it was cold outside. And then another lady who was like, it gives me such a great sense of reassurance to be able to hear my equipment run. And that was the one where I realized, oh, you need to set people up to recognize that not having the noise is a feature, not a bug.
Exactly.
And that's part of I think I told Nate that story as he was starting to get into recommending equipment, and so he just avoided it with his
I like to put whistles inside the supply plenum. So when it kicks on, if I have that issue, it just starts whistling at him.
Love it. That would be a creative way around it.
That's a creative solution for the crazy people.
Sometimes you got to do stuff. But Heating Cooling Services, he's got a story here. It sounds like I did a VRF new install and had to lock them in high, so the homeowner was satisfied. Didn't work as well, but that's what they wanted. And sometimes you're going to have that, but that's again where the client education is helpful. So if you can begin to set that up front, that can be good. And like noise complaints are pretty common. I heard it a lot. Jeff, what percentage of clients would you say you hear a noise complaint on? Is it 20%, 30%, something like that?
I'd say it's 50-50.
Okay.
For me, people were ecstatic about how much quieter, because mostly I was selling Infinity systems and downsizing them. And so most of my responses was, oh God, it's so nice. This thing's so quiet.
You count as much as me though, Ted. Because we test, right? I mean,
you get to figure it out. Susie Dunn says her dad likes them noisy. I mean, so much of this is no one has any concept of what good comfort and a good system in a house can be, because they're just all commodities. And yeah, here you go, Heating Cooling Services. Homeowners are just so used to having crap systems and people don't like change. I think better communication from the get-go is the best. And I guess I didn't do a great job at that. It's very easy to do that, but that's part of why we have it set up where you will offer them that quick education, the 90-second video and the 4-minute video multiple times. And then if they don't watch it and they complain, here's the emails. What more do you want out of me? And we have an automated email tool that's mostly built that you just click a button and it will pre-populate with your email tool, their email address, subject line, and the body, and you can just make slight changes as needed. And then so you can do that, do your what to expect email before you go. They can get an automated email after they put a lead in if they do it online and get exposed to the same education. So it's a good thing.
And that's also why I asked you, Nate, when you said, hey, you watched them in my What to Expect email, and you said
Yeah.
you didn't want to watch them. That's why I asked you what you thought about them.
Yes.
It wasn't just to throw that out there, because I really wanted to know, hey, did you watch it, or are you just saying you watched it?
Yeah, and a lot of people will just be like, yeah, move on. Let's keep going. But at least this documents that you asked them. And if they say yes, and it turns out later, and they're like, how come this doesn't do what this says? Like, well, that was part of the education. Did you watch it? Here you go. So yeah, that's also part of responsibly avoiding responsibility. All right, so back to doing the measurements. What do we call this? Well, we know it's a furnace and a
Upflow.
coil. Upflow, great. Do you want right or left, Jeff?
It's left.
You know the house you're thinking of. And let me zoom out so this is easier to see the whole thing. But this makes it easy for newbies. So if you've got somebody new on the team, this shows them where to take measurements. And I love the gap here. That was Jeff. I didn't ever think about measuring the gap. So how wide is it in between the supply, the system and the return drop?
2 inches.
Ooh, it's tight. Okay. Supply plenum
17 and a half.
by
Well, just say 17. It's 17 by 20 deep.
17 by 20. Okay. Return an 8 by 20
is 10 by 24.
Are you thinking of your house or your neighbor's house?
Not my house.
Okay. All right. How high is the total height from floor to the floor joist?
96 inches.
Call 8 foot. And then how high is the equipment itself, coil and unit?
Coil and unit is 67.
67?
Mhm.
All right. And then we have 96 over here again, probably, right? Unless do we have
Yep.
a plenum up top we have to bang into?
Yeah, 96.
96 it is. All right. So that's in there. And now if you're an install manager or you deal with that, you've at least got some basic stuff, this and some photos, and you might be able to skip a trip to the site. And then here's static pressure measurements. So pre-filter, what do you want to say, Jeff?
Negative 0.23.
Okay. Post filter.
Negative 0.54.
Woo! That's a 1 inch running hot. 0.3 across the filter. Holy cow. Pre-coil.
Is 0.41.
Post coil.
0.18.
Okay, so there you go. So it's going to pull those together. It's always nice when a plan comes together. 0.95 total external static. So just auto calculated. So obviously, if you're really, really newbie, you may not want people punching holes or, installing test ports. But if you have any experience at all, this is a really important thing to do. Jeff, your old company, they actually did static pressure as just part of it, right? Part of like a service call.
Yep.
So you knew walking in, which was nice. Okay, so
Now, get rid of the negative. Is that? Okay, I'm just.
Oh yeah,
newbies
let's
as
see what
well.
happens. It forced the negative. Oh, that's kind of funny. Look at that. Got rid of the decimal point and said 54 inches of static. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. But yeah, I don't think I can get rid of the negative. Oop. Yeah, look, it's forcing the negative. So good.
Awesome.
That's working now. It was a 5.4.
Mhm.
There we go. So 0.95 static. So they paid for this, and now they understand that anything over half an inch is a problem. So that's going to lead to a sizing discussion once we get there. All right, install choices. This comes from templates that you can set up for your own account. And you can do whatever you want here, but I have it set for basic, good, better, best. And the 60,000 BTU with the 3 ton, which you can change to whatever you want. So Jeff, what else do you want me to change in here?
Well, before we get to this portion, we'll go back to the kitchen table
Okay.
with the client. Go back to the questionnaire.
Oh yeah, let's go finish that. Thank you. So click back to free quote at the bottom here and scroll to the bottom. All right, return to kitchen table. Here we go.
All right, so I got all my measurements and everything that I need right now from the equipment. Are you planning on making this decision today, or do I have time to send my proposal to you later?
It's probably going to be at least a couple days. So I've got a few more people coming.
Okay, so I got at least a couple days to get it sent to you then, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you
2,
can
3
can I get it by Wednesday, end of day?
Wednesday end of day, business day. Yep, I'll get that sent to you.
All right.
Now that being said, there's a bunch of options that I can put together for you, and obviously, what I want to do is build it as well as I can around what you want. That being said, did you have a budget in mind for this project?
Well, I was hoping to be somewhere in like the $10,000 range.
Okay, all right, great. And then when you do get a quote, because again, there's all these different options and these moving pieces. Do you like it with the most expensive options first or the least expensive?
Least for me.
Least? Okay,
Yep.
I can do that. And then, do you have a plan on funding the project?
Yeah, I've got a home equity line.
Okay, all right. And that is it. What I will do, Nate, is I will take all this information, I'll build your report for you, and then what I'll do is I'll get it to you by the end of the day, Wednesday. However, before I do wrap up and finish up today, I would like to go over your depth pressure with you that you wanted me to check and test. So I'll pull this up, and then that's when I'll go into that conversation. So I think we'll kind of leave it there, right?
Yep, I think that works for that. And so then once you get back to the truck, and so the key thing here is this is not necessarily being pushy. If they need to make the decision there, the equipment's broken, yeah, go, get it done. But if it's not a rush job, it's probably better to see if you can get yourself last look. If you've developed a relationship, you can call them later. You might, Jeff, do you usually text? And Reedy, I'm curious with you too. If it's someone who is waiting, do you text or email them before you send it and then have a conversation with them? How do you guys handle that?
Well, typically what I will do real quick is I will jump into it and ask you, hey, by the end of the day, Wednesday, would it be okay if I just stopped by and went over it with you? Yeah. And then if it's a no, all right, great. What I'll do is I'll just give you a call or shoot you a text before I send it. I just want to make sure that you do get it by Wednesday, end of day, and I want to be held accountable. So is it best for me to call you or text you to let you know that I'm sending it?
Perfect.
And then get that response.
Susie's got a good question here. How many options do you suggest presenting? We set the software up to handle between 3 and 5. So pick your poison. I personally like 4 because then the top one probably feels too much, but they might take one step down. And so we can take a look at what that looks like, actually. I love that.
So it's
Reedy,
good,
what about
better,
you?
best, and the one you're not going to pick.
Yeah. Or basic, good, better, best. Like I'll sell you a piece of crap like everybody else is trying to sell you. But just understand that it's not going to do what you want. Love this heating and cooling services. Y'all are spoiled. I got like 30 inches from the dirt to the floor. Man, I do not.
I feel you.
envy you. Yeah.
I feel you.
I got that here. Ken's been here. I don't like my crawl space. I had a water leak last weekend. That sucked. So hats off to all you Southern boys and girls that have to deal with that. And
So Reedy, I want your take
Yeah,
on that.
usually what I do, if they don't want it right then and there, I'll just tell them, okay, I'll get it sent to you. I'll give you a call when I send it. And they say, okay, and I say what time, and that way we can go over it. If they want me to come out, I can come out, but usually a call will suffice.
Oh, Jeff, Susie caught us. We set a slab and she's like 8 foot from slab to the ceiling.
Well, this unit's on the second floor, so it's 8 from the floor to the ceiling. So when you said what's on top of it, well, it actually goes into the attic, and I'm not looking up there. So I know I got 96 inches. So
Good save. Good
Yes.
save. Yeah. We obviously both are thinking basements because that's what we were used to.
yeah, this one was on the second floor. This one is on the second floor.
Okay.
In a utility room, laundry room.
Okay. Hence you were thinking 96 inches. Oh, and that's why you had space because the trunk was actually on the other side of the ceiling.
Yep.
See? Okay. Just when we just when I thought that she caught us. Good questions though, Susie. All right. Let's take a look at the report with a little more detail. Let's click this. And I'm so happy this actually works live. Been a long time getting it here. So we already looked at this. This is the 4 questions, the comfort quiz. So pretty low, and Jeff quizzed me and it stayed low. Here's what we call likely load range. This is not automated right now, but it's next up. So right now I had
I'm
to
going to call out that a free quote is recommended. You might want to circle that with your.
Oh yeah, up here, yeah, your score with it, with a total score of 6, a free quote is recommended because we do have that set. When you get 1 to 12 is a free quote, 13 to 19 is either or, and they need to kind of make their choice. 20 and above, it's recommended to do a comfort consult, which that then involves a blower door. And then if they have one score that is 8 or higher, so like if their total score is a 9, but one of them is an 8. We would recommend a comfort console because that's probably worth figuring out. But then fairly often what we're finding is you might recommend that and they're still going to do a free quote. Okay, they were offered. So heating size and cooling size, this auto-populates when you put the numbers in. This is not working quite right at the moment, but again, this whole tool is going to shift within a month or two to where this is all automated. So all you're going to need to put in the questions that Jeff asked me about how many floors there are and what the foundation is. Those paired with square footage and the zip code will pop up likely load range. So what a really tight house might have and what a really loose house might have. You could still get a little bit beyond one way or the other, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but it's unlikely.
It's sort of 90% of houses in that square footage. You could have a really basket case house or a really tight, super spray foamed house on either end. But, if you're not going to do a load calc, this at least will give you the range of all your neighbors' loads.
Exactly.
Well, what's a load calc, Ted? Hold on. Let's address that. What's a load calc? You say if you're not going to do a load calc on a free quote, what's a load calc on a free quote?
There is no load calc on a free quote.
For the people in the back, what'd you say?
There is no load calc on a free quote because we don't do load calcs without measured infiltration, and you don't pull out the blower door for free. So there's no load calc.
Thank you.
Jeff's like, I rest my case. You're a witness.
No further questions, Your Honor. What if we just change the name to what people call a load count, just a load estimation? Quit lying to people. If you're not using a blower door, it's an estimation.
Yeah,
but it's a manual J.
Yeah, still, yeah, it's garbage, is what it is.
Yeah, what would you like your man Jay to be? I'm
not going to show that, Susie. Sorry.
All right. I love ladies in the construction industry. My aunt has a wicked sense of humor. She always
hopefully we'll be getting more of them like Susie.
That's amazing right there. So anyway, this is what you would get if you ran a load calc and you ran it for a tight house or a loose house of that square footage. Now, this is pretty broad. So like if you have a newer home, it's probably going to lean towards the bottom side. And if you have an old leaky home, it's probably going to lean towards the higher side. But you just don't know. I mean, it is so easy to be off by 1, 2, or even 3 tons. I mean, particularly in heat load, it's all over the map.
Yeah. So why take responsibility for that? These people are asking for a free quote, which means that they should probably have a specification if they're really wanting apples to apples bids. And so you get there and you say, well, so you don't have a specification. We'll help you get close to one that you can give to everybody. But these, you're going to have to make some decisions and take on some risk.
Exactly. Susie's blaming autocorrect for that comment. Either way, it's fine. Definitely no free blower door.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Hey, if nothing else, that was funny as hell. So thank you. Okay, so this is meant to just give you an idea of where things might land and also give the clients an idea of where things land. And it's like, so industry standard is to keep where you are. But Jeff, in this case, we know that this thing's pushing an inch of static and it's got a PSC motor. So what's likely to happen when we go to an X13 or an ECM? And what does that suggest we should do?
Well, I mean, you're going to get a 10 to 30% increase of duct pressure if you're going with an X13 up to the constant airflow EC motor. So it's only going to make that worse, which I would kind of point out in my report or my email that I sent to the client. So this is where I'd like to go back and have that conversation in person versus just sending the report.
Yeah.
Because that can get lost in translation.
Yep, definitely could. I think it's best to have another conversation here. But that's a 2-touch sale. That it's not a 1-call close. That's a 2-call close, which usually works better anyway. So, and cooling can range all over the place too. It's not quite as wide as what heating can, but it's definitely there. And heating cooling services said it's not happening. So a block load by an experienced person can get pretty close to load calc with the blower door. Can you zoom in on that? Do you mean if you know the blower door, you can get pretty close? Curious on that. And then the other side of it is with the blower door. I mean, Ted and I have played with this, and if you don't have past energy use, we found that we're still off by quite a bit, like oftentimes a ton. So it's tricky to understand what that is, but it does help to a large degree. Like if you have a fairly tight house, you can probably size towards the lower side of things. Where if you have a loose house, you actually probably want to be somewhere up close to Man J. Man J can be about right if you've got an old leaky house. But on the
so who's taking that responsibility to change the equipment without having that conversation with the client?
Yeah. So Tanner, why don't you take a swing at helping him with this?
Yeah, I think it seems like a lot of people tend to, when they hear about manual J's and load calculations and stuff, it's like they imagine it like this secret software that has this magical sauce that you just punch in this information and it just automatically knows what the house is and gives you an accurate number. Because really all it is you're just estimating. You're making an estimate as to what you think it might be. And the problem is that is purely based on the information that you put in. And so if you're missing a huge chunk of what the load can be, which is infiltration, you're starting out right on step one, just with a very wide tolerance. And then when you factor in the fact that Manual J has a lot of fudge factors built in on the heating side that can really throw it out of whack, it kind of just puts you in a place where sure, you're getting a number, but it could be off like drastically. I mean, like we've said a lot of plus or minus 70%. I mean, that's not unrealistic for what it can actually be. And so what it comes down to is, what do you feel comfortable with taking responsibility with? Having the numbers that you need to actually get close to where you can eliminate a lot of guesswork and tolerance? Or do you want to go put on your cape and start doing free load calculations that you know is not going to be great, and then own the responsibility to those? I mean, that's the real question.
Yeah, and you're free to do load calcs for free for people if you want, but our process doesn't allow it.
I don't think
Yeah,
that's
well,
really
so
the
one
case
challenge
unless
he
you're
has-
monitoring.
He's in North Carolina too, so you have to do something, which sucks because Reedy has the same challenge.
And that's why we came up with likely load range.
Yep, it's meant to help show an idea because Reedy, you were telling us about a lawsuit over that, right? And it went to like what size is right, and 3 different contractors all came in. One said a 2-ton, one said a 3-ton, one said a 4-ton, and the judge is like, "Well, then nobody knows," and he threw it out. And it can definitely be that far. Like it is not hard to be off by a ton or two.
If you perform a load calculation, you're wearing a cape, which is one of the things you're not supposed to do on HVAC 2.0. You're not supposed to be the hero. You're pretending you're smarter than you are, which puts you in a place where you can't be the guide because you're already setting your ego up in the sales relationship wrong. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Instead of, well, I don't really know. This is the first time I've seen this house.
Ooh, if I got my butt bit for saying stuff like that.
Yeah, we all have. And, it's probably best to allow people to get bit a few times because then they know the pain of it. But
and
we're doing an offer decline here so that you can later on not blame us for warning you.
Well, you're living in a gray area is kind of what you're purposely doing. Everyone's like, oh, well, of course the blower door is going to be better, but it's kind of thought of, oh, well, that's just not practical. People's not going to want to do that. And so X is better than like for like. But the problem with that is by living, you understand you're in a gray area where it could be off, it may not be off, but the homeowner don't know that. So when you tell them, hey, Miss Jones, you need a 3-ton unit, when she doesn't need a 3-ton unit and that causes a problem, she's going to blame you. And so what it really comes down to is where do you draw the line of when I'm going to tell you what size you need and when I'm going to say, I really don't know, we can go like for like, or you can tell me what size you want. And so we've just come to that line being blower door with load calc, energy use preferred, and set points.
Yeah, but you don't know what's the reason they call you is to replace their HVAC. They don't call you because you know better. They call you because you're the mechanic.
Yeah, the real thing here is that if you actually do a blower door in conjunction with manual J and the energy usage and the runtime, you'll find that doing just a straight manual J and guessing, it's nowhere close. It's nowhere close. You could even go on the other side and just have runtime.
Who here thinks likely load range is doing better than a pretend calculation?
I do.
So I think with this here is kind of how let me get this together here. I think I understand is when we have this, okay, where we're saying, hey, yeah, we know a little bit better. Well, if it's a newer home, this is where we can help guide them. We're not telling them. So if somebody still wants 110,000 BTU furnace, like it's on the top end of this range, then they can by all means have that. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to give them a high five and say that's the best decision out there. So we're going to say, hey, your house is 2008, Nate, right?
Mm-hmm.
With your house being built in 2008, there's a lot of codes changed in Indiana that has to reach a certain number when the home's built. Now, let's hope like hell that they hit that. That being said, you said it doesn't run very often. It's very noisy. The duct pressure is high. Without us doing a bunch of duct work to try to get that down, we could potentially go down in size, but I don't know. That's a decision you get to make. Now, with the house being 2008, and if they did hit all those numbers, it may be on this half point or below. And you might get away with a system that size. What would you like to do?
Or I was talking to Tim Portman.
Your car to a place that didn't do diagnostics and just offered to start replacing parts?
So,
because if you're a parts cannon, then you can continue.
Well, hang on, Ted. He's not a parts cannon. I know he doesn't think of himself that way. Let me take this a slightly different direction. In talking to Tim Portman the other night, he had a wonderful question that's going to end up in here, which is, what is your risk tolerance, to ask the client?
Right. But before we get there, we have to get to the point of the homeowner has chosen not to have you do diagnostics.
Yeah, they were offered diagnostics.
So you're not doing diagnostics. And since you're not doing diagnostics, you don't tell them you know what the fix is. You tell them you don't know what the fix is because they've elected not to do diagnostics.
And that is the challenge. Yeah, they asked for a free quote, which is worth what they paid for it.
Yeah. So if they're going to pay you to do a load calc, then you do a load calc that includes a blower door. If you do a load calc that doesn't do a blower door, you're not really doing the diagnostic service. You're pretending to be a professional.
So
And that's a
And
hard pill to
2/3.
swallow.
I think
hard.
I think I can understand, because it is a bit of a mind shift, I think,
Mhm.
because a lot of HVAC professionals, they want to be in the business of helping people, right? And they have a name and a brand and a trust, and and they want to hold that right. And so I can see where that confusion comes from, and I can maybe try to explain how I helped clear it in my own head. And I think the analogy is, I think the analogy of like taking a car to the mechanic is actually quite spot on, because if I took my car to a mechanic and I said, I need new brakes, can you give me quotes for 4 new brakes? And they asked me, do you want to just go back to where it was before? And I said, yes. They gave me a quote. I went to 3 different mechanics and then picked the cheapest one. That's the process we're talking about here, right? With free quote. So I'm going to the mechanic, I'm telling them what I want. I'm telling them I want my car to be exactly the way it was before. And then I'm picking the cheapest one possible. Why would any mechanic want to go above and beyond and take the additional risk of wasting their time and energy and giving me a diagnostic? The alternative is, if I went to my mechanic that I go to, who's just down the road from me, actually, and I said, hey, I come to you all the time when I have trouble and I trust you. Why don't you tell me what's wrong, and I'll pay you for your time? Then you're engaging them as a professional. Then you're engaging their expertise. Otherwise, you're just treating them as like your app, that like a DoorDash app. Hey, go pick up this food for me, right? Go pick up this brake for me. Go pick up this HVAC for me. If you're not engaging them on their expertise, then given the choice of engaging their expertise through this process, if the homeowner chooses to not to engage your expertise, then why would you give it up for free? I think that's how I don't know if it made sense to people, but that's how I cleared that confusion in my own head when I was wrestling with similar.
Oh, I think so, Abby, because well, that's the curse. Is a free quote is not really engaging us as professionals. We're kind of throwing stuff at them. But I mean, thank you, Abby. You just said what I was trying to say. So there you go. So you got it. And that can be the curse of written word, but free quote is tricky. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Jeff's
Well, this is the other problem that hopefully the free quote process is going to solve, or attempt to solve, is you have a lot of people that are out there selling equipment that don't have a process that will allow them to give the homeowner choices of whether or not they want a better understanding of what their house needs or not.
Amen. And I mean, like you said, Jeff, so many of the salespeople for the bigger companies have zero training in HVAC before they get there. So this at least helps make it slightly less bad, and hopefully gets the client to the right solution. So that's interesting. And Susie said, do service advisors diagnose? Do you mean service techs, just kind of making sure? So you're talking service side rather than sales, just confirming so that we're talking about the right thing. Come on back when you have a minute on that. And there's 2 other questions just to tackle here real quick. So Neil C. Vid said, does blower door also include duct leakage? The answer is sort of. So with the standard comfort consults, you probably don't need to get into a full-on duct leakage test. If you put the blower door up and then you have a pressure pan that you can put over a couple of the registers. You're getting to get an idea if it's really leaky there or not. And if it is, further testing. If it's not, stop. Because the comfort console is meant to be just enough diagnostics to figure out what the next step is after that.
Yeah. So the comfort console is designed to be inexpensive
Mhm.
and a preliminary diagnostic step that helps you determine if further diagnostics, planning, modeling, all of these things are needed,
Or shell.
or to shell work. It's like one of the things that we endeavored to do was, well, we started out as home performance boneheads.
Yes, we did.
And so what we endeavored to do was create a step that gave the typical homeowner a whole lot more than they could get in the marketplace today without adding a tremendous amount of cost and turning them into a science project. And so one of the things that duct leakage is for about 99.45% of houses is its bonehead science project, spending the customer's money completely unnecessarily.
You better explain a little bit further on that, Ted.
Very expensive diagnostics that are generally unneeded for helping the homeowner solve the problems that they've conveyed to you that justified the comfort consult.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I mean, most of the houses that are going to have that kind of issue are probably going to have ductwork that's in the attic or the crawl space, in which case you probably should just quote them new duct system while they're at it, or you seal the boots as part of it, because where the boots come through the ceiling can be a big deal.
As part of the comfort consult, everybody gets offered a comprehensive planning process.
Yep.
And as part of the comprehensive planning process, if you're making that offer, you already have an understanding that there's deficiency in the ductwork, there's deficiency in the envelope. All of those things are going to be part of what your comprehensive planning process. It's part of the package.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of diagnostics that would come after the comfort consult, but it is surprising when you do one of those and you do a good load calc based on past energy use and blower door, and you know where the blower door issues are. You have an idea of where the shell issues are. The next step forward oftentimes becomes obvious without that extra testing. All right, Reedy, you commented your own house is 2,100 square feet. Blower door was 2,000, so decent. That's a 1-to-1, but not fantastic because it is a newer house. Man J with blower door says 42,000 cooling with runtime and actual load. It's 1.5 tons, Reedy.
Yeah.
You're at?
Remember we did that. Me and you did the load calculation.
Yep.
And that's what it came up to.
Oh, was that worst case? Heating?
That was actual. I use my Infinity control to measure the time, the runtime, and I use my energy usage.
And that's heating?
That's cooling.
Oh, that's cooling. Okay, so probably 2 tons heating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess what I had? I had a 3-ton green speed.
Yeah. Well, it's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
But that shows you something there, though. Like the cooling came in 3.5 and actual was 1.5. So
yeah,
but that's a really tricky, risky thing to do. I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that out of a free quote. You need to know more. So Susie
I was
popped in.
just talking about the manual J thing. You can do manual J all you want. I mean, I did a manual J with the blower door, and I got 42,000. And there was actually 4.5 tons in the house. So a manual J is a likely load range is better. And the reason why is because of what everyone said. You're not taking responsibility. You can put in what they have or what they want. But if they want
They own
better, then they should be willing to pay for better.
And part of this actually came from Reedy's story, where he was involved in a lawsuit that they claimed it was the wrong size equipment, and went and got 3 separate manual J's done, and each one was so different that the judge didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yep. So Susie comes in again here. I know mechanics who don't diagnose it. Their service advisor diagnoses, and then the mechanic changes the part. So you may see that some, but on the salesperson fronts, that would be kind of interesting. I mean, so one curse is all of us here tonight, as near as I can tell, are quite technical. So we can actually be trusted with this stuff to a degree. But also, like on the sizing, I don't want to tell somebody what size it is because I've seen them vary so much. Like Reedy said, and Reedy's you're in a mild climate, climate zone 3, right? For North Carolina. So, I mean, that's an easy climate. When you get to the colder climates, man, can you be off. You got a leaky house, you can get your butt kicked by not putting enough in. But then it's surprising, like probably half of houses, you can just put a 2 or 3 ton in with 10 kW backup and you're good to go. It doesn't take that much. Neil C. Vids mentioned need OBD2 diagnostics for HVAC. Yeah, right, not yet. In this case, this is actually looking at the house. So you kind of do have OBD2 with the smart probes and Measure Quick or whatever tool you want to play with. So on the service side, there is something like that. But this is really the house side, is trying to understand everything. So we don't know enough. Susie said, I've been a tech for 25 years. I won't tell you what size AC you need. That's not my job. Awesome. Not my money, not my problem. There's an example of it right there. I'll do what you want. And my buddy Steve. So we went to high school together, fellow nerds. This is totally off topic, but I'll at least just tackle it. Can a 24-hour average of CO2 in the total man hours of occupants be used to determine natural infiltration? And you know what? I'm honestly not sure. And it would depend on what the temperature is outside too. Right now, where we are, where it's 55 to 75, 80 degrees in most of the country, you're not going to be able to learn much. When it's really hot or cold, you might be able to tell, but you need to understand some other things. So it may or may not be
equipment would need to be recirculating full time too, right?
Yep. And you might have, if you have a lot of supply or return leakage, that could throw it off as well. So there's a bunch of different factors. I don't know if that one number is adequate. So in this case, we're mainly talking loads and an ecobee thermostat that can watch how much equipment runs, and you watch it on a design day and you see what's going on. So
one of the things we're thinking is eventually we're going to go to get to a way of expressing to people that this is your likely load range based on similar houses. And if you want us to do a load calc for your house that includes infiltration, you can basically, if you're a really tight house, what you're going to see is a third of this range over on the left.
Yeah.
And if you're a really loose house, you're going to see a third of this range over on the right. And so when you're a third of this range, you sort of land on 4 ton, or you sort of land on 2 ton within a few thousand BTU. Sort of like the half to 1 ton range. If I'm understanding that correctly. Did I get that right, guys?
Well, it's if you know all of those other elements, you can oftentimes get closer. I was really happy last winter. I helped a client with, I had past energy use and blower door in Washington, D.C., and I was within 1,500 BTUs of right. But then another client that I just posted about the other day, where they spray foamed, they gutted and spray foamed a house. The load came in like 4 tons ish, something like that, because we were considering a 4 ton rather than a 3. We did a 3, and when it was 2 degrees out, the compressor was running 70%. So it was a 2. So despite being super accurate, not having actual energy use, but just blower door, and he got pretty close to his target, but not having extra energy use, we were still overestimating by a ton and a half, 2 tons, depending which way you want to look at that. So
Is that the one where you showed the thermostat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
2-degree thermostat running at
70% compressor. Yeah.
So
I
and
was,
that had backup. So that if you were going to
he's
lean
good.
into it, that's a long way off.
Yeah. Well, I was a little bit nervous on that one too, whether we were going to do a 10 or a 15, because he was short on panel, and it's like you can really only do a 10 and make it fit the panel. So that's what we did, and it turns out it's actually overkill. But my point there is not knowing past energy use and being pretty good at sizing stuff generally, I was still way wrong, and I was surprised by how far I was off. And thank you, by the way. So there's a great comment popping up. If it will come on. Heating cooling services saying, I'm just trying to give constructive criticism. This is wonderful discussion. So this is great.
Yeah, this is exactly because this is how we unpack a lot of the philosophy behind this.
Yeah.
So that it makes sense to people. And one of the things that, like, I talked to Jeff when he's doing a whole lot of free quotes, and there are a lot of people that don't want any of this done. Just tell me how much it's going to cost to replace my crappy equipment. And the more you know that this is possible, the more you realize you can't tell people no. If you aren't willing to do it my way, I'm not going to replace your equipment. And so this whole thing is about serving people the best way possible based on their needs communicated to you. And sometimes that's replacing a 5-ton with a 5-ton because that's what they want. But you want to do it in such a way that you've really given them a lot of chance to make decisions that are going to help them avoid problems. And then if they don't make those decisions, you can go back and say, at this point, I asked you this question. You said you hadn't looked at the video. At this point, I asked you this question. And you said you didn't want me to check static pressure. At this point, I asked you this question. And you said you didn't
think it was a problem.
Didn't even take a look at what a comfort console is. So
okay, fine.
At that point, I'm like, okay, so here's your likely load range, which is kind of the last chance to help them make a change to their equipment size. And if they still are like, okay, then who else?
Here's your sign.
Here's your sign. Who else has given them that many opportunities to make a better decision? And by the way, I'm not calling anybody, I'm not saying that being a parts cannon is a bad thing. I'm saying a parts cannon is a good thing if the client has told you to be a parts cannon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? For you so if that's what they want you to do, start replacing parts, then you want to be sure that they don't come back later and call you incompetent. And our whole process is designed to protect you from that and allow you to sell whatever people want you to sell them.
There you go, Ted. Yeah. All right, moving along. I'm just going to touch on this briefly with the duct pressure graphic with the reading popping off the wrong side. So what we have set this up, and I'm actually going to adjust this, but we really like 0.08 to 0.3 for external static. Systems are quiet, they're happy, things are good. 0.3 to 0.5 is still fine, but I'd still prefer to be under 0.3. 0.5 to 0.7, it's like, all right, something might be going on. Above 0.7, things can start to happen. So this shows that, and then you can plot it. Or if they don't opt for it, it will say, what is it? Declined, and then client assumes risk. and it says it right here on the report. And
Unknown. Client assumes risk.
there you go. Unknown. There you go. Thank you. And I think the reason this isn't working right is because I created this report before doing the show. And so it wouldn't let me go through there. So I created the report before I filled it out. I think I broke it. So we just found another bug. All right. Scrolling on down. Then there's equipment choices. So we have this set up with 4 basic, good, better, best. So in the 6 functions, your equipment controls load matching, dehumidification, and mixing. This is basically the fan down here. So a basic system, single stage, probably oversized. It's not going to be that great. So load matching, it can't load match. It's on or it's off. Dehumidification, it's going to be very meh. And it's kind of funny. I need to change this to be 15s here because you can't do a 13 anymore. And then mixing, it's going to have an X13. And if the static's high, that's going to be an unhappy system. You can change any of these smiley faces. You can change anything in this whole chart. And then this is meant to be something like a 2-stage or a Daikin fit, something like that. So you start marching up a little bit. And this is a little nicer system still, thinking of like a 5-stage carrier in particular, and then like a green speed here. Pick your poison with your brand. But that's the idea there. And then on the install side of things, you can keep your basic 1-inch filter. It's actually a downgrade. This is below what we normally do, but if you want an apples to apples price, like, you need to put this in. Good includes a media filter with MERV 11. Better is a MERV 13 media. Same with nearly perfect. But because this is a hybrid system, fresh air can just be a duct outdoors, or for the top one, a ventilating dehumidifier. So you've offered them all kinds of different things. The odds of them saying yes to this now are probably not that high, but they'll probably say yes to this. And then they get all but badass HVAC or nearly perfect HVAC out of that. So now they just got themselves a nice system. And Jeff, I'd like a quieter system. Do you think a large media filter and potentially me deciding to drop to a 60 from an 80 might help?
Possibly. I mean, it's worth a shot. Can't be worse. Can it?
Right. I hope not. Depends on that 30% bump in duct pressure from a PSC to an ECM. But I
mean,
yeah,
we can try it. Whatever you want.
Yep. I'll put it. Well, what's your risk tolerance? And worst case scenario is maybe you have to do a little bit of insulation. That's okay. I'll roll the dice on that. And we both pretty much know that if we're hearing from the client that the equipment's shutting off frequently, and it's got an 80K, it doesn't need 80K. I mean, we did this when we were discussing earlier, kind of with your house in mind, which is pretty similar to what we're talking about here, only you have a basement. So you've watched runtime. What do you actually need in your house?
So I've got the same size right there, cookie cutter, throw it around. I think it's like 51,000 BTUs of heat, and I'm right around 37,000 BTUs of cooling. So 3 ton, 60K mod, or total electric. Yeah.
Yep. And what would a standard load calc pop up for your house? Have you run one?
Yeah, it's actually like an 84K heating, and it's 41,000 BTUs of cooling.
Okay.
So, which is
Cooling's not too far off.
3.5.
Yeah, cooling's usually not too crazy, except for Reedy's house. But it can be. But heating, 84 to 51?
Yeah, and it's the static pressure on my system right now that I have, that I'm purposely killing this and using it as a test dummy, is 1.15 inches of water column with a PSC motor. So I'm running it about, I think it's about 1100. I put on a fan curve, a little under 1100 CFM, and it keeps our house comfortable with about 41 to 45% humidity in the summer months. So I know like hell, a 3-ton modulating would be good.
Man, it's such the irony that, like, in the future, if you have an ECM eating itself alive, it might be better to go buy a PSC and put it in so it just doesn't move as much air. It seems so wrong. It's two wrongs make us slightly less wrong in that case, maybe. Definitely not right, but wow. Anyway, well, it's looking for any other chats in there, things in the chat. So heating, cooling services. So need to do the.
It's the comment before that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what y'all are doing is great. I'll wear a cape before being a parts cannon, and I think most of the industry would agree. You can wear your cape. We're trying to keep you from getting bit. Heroes tend to get killed. We'd much rather be the guide in all of that. But yeah, and Ted's putting in here the mindset shift going from hero to guide's really hard. That's why Sandler's so important. Like there's a couple of mindset shifts that are really important here. It's not my money, not my problems, really important. I'm going to try and help you with yours. Jeff, you talk about a couple too, so hop in.
Reedy had a comment there too. Reedy, I don't know if you want to bring that up here about industry professionals and what is the standard for.
Oh, I'm not seeing Reedy's. Which one, Abby? What does it start with?
Where is the end of what industry professionals give away in terms of money for cape wearing decisions? What is the least bit of technical info that is acceptable? And who decides that? Is it a system if there are no guardrails? And this is a technical selling system. So we have pretty clear guardrails, and they're there because they didn't exist before, and it caused problems. And so all of these guardrails that we've created are there for reasons. And when we train people on these reasons and we give them this system, we don't really care if you follow the system. What we really care about is having given you the system, and if you get bit, it's because you didn't follow it, not because
we didn't try to help. Yeah,
we didn't give it to you.
Yeah.
And we found over and over again, like, we got to protect the guys. We got to protect them because customers do stuff. They try to get you to take responsibility for stuff. And so we're documenting, and we're training to leave your cape at home, because you can either feed your family or feed your ego. And if you take your ego into the sale, you can feel like a hero, but it's gonna, I mean, look, we've all been there. So we're saying don't go there. But sometimes you got to go there and realize what we're saying and being like, oh, I get it now. So most of us weren't smart enough to get the I get it now part, and we had to get bit.
So one of the things I notice, Nate and Ted, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that actually in some cases it might not actually be so much different from a process that an old school experienced tech may already be using, right? And
Yeah.
I'll try to illustrate with an example. So I'm thinking a lot about, I'm very grateful, by the way, for the comments that everyone's putting in, especially heating and cooling services, because
those are really good.
Amazing.
It's a good episode.
It's good to reflect on those. And I can understand where he's coming from, because I think what he's saying is, if you're an experienced tech, you walk around a house. Let's say you go to a house for some reason, right? Hypothetically, you forgot your iPad that day, so you can't do a free quote process according to the app. But you show up there and you walk around. If you've been in about 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen houses, you can, within a reasonable degree, say, fall within a 6,000 to a 12,000 BTU load range, right? So you don't need, as an experienced tech, you might not need the technical app. What this process is trying to do is, once you have a number in your head or a number that the app tells you, what do you do with that information? Like, if your instinct is to be like, I can't quite tell you what load you need for your house. What I can tell you is homes of this size that I've been in the past typically tend to be between 6,000 and 12,000 BTU. Like if that's your first instinct, that's basically what this process is asking you to do, right? So what we're calling a likely load range is nothing. It's very similar to what you, as an experienced tech, would estimate based on whatever tacit knowledge methods you have. The way that you communicate that what this process is giving you is a way of de-risking, rather than tell them, I think you need blah. You're saying based on my expertise, generally houses of this nature need this, but if you want more information, you can choose that path. So it's not very different, I don't think, right, from
The
a
really
conventional
good
way of doing
techs
it.
are going to let the homeowner choose. I've experienced that too. When I got my Unico, my buddy was like, "Hey, would you like a heat pump instead of an air conditioner?" And I'm like, "Why would I want a heat pump?" And he's like, it might be interesting to see how it worked. Whatever, right?
Mhm.
I said no. Whose fault is it I don't have a heat pump?
My fault. Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to make sure there's enough education on the table that we're giving the clients enough rope to hang themselves with, but also um, we're trying to develop something that's good for newbies. So all of us here have an idea. I mean, like I've joked, well, it's not really a joke even. I can roll by a house and I can scope them from the street for what they need shell wise, about half of them. Just look at a house. It's going to need this, 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 and this. We have to figure out some of the details, but then you have to sell it. And I could still be wrong. So,
You can still be wrong, right?
so there's all of these different things. I mean, I've been really certain a couple of times, and then we get to the end of like, crap,
Oh boy,
that didn't fix it. Yeah,
was
what do
I
we do
was I
now?
wrong about
Um,
this one?
yeah, they said yes to everything and it didn't work. Uh-oh, that's a bad place to be. So it's always best to suggest more and to help people understand risk and what their different options are and go from there. So, I mean, in general, when it comes to sizing, yeah, we may have some idea of what a house might be, but without the extra information, knowing how wide of results all of us here have seen, um, my professional opinion and the homeowner's opinion aren't far enough apart in validity for me to be comfortable. I don't want to own that if I don't have to.
I think of it this way: if I don't have a blower door test on your house, you are more likely to be equipped to size your equipment well than I am. And I'm the guy that's tracked lots and lots of energy and lots of projects afterwards. So probably one of like less than two hands, you got a bunch of people here that have done this, and almost nobody else in the industry has gone back and watched equipment run on the hottest and the coldest day. Almost nobody else in the industry has gone back a year later and got the energy use. So all the guys that have this very accurate understanding of what happens to houses after they've been fixed are right here. And they're saying, I wouldn't do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's all
It's a
good.
false sense of confidence is what it is.
It
It's
can
when,
be.
well, I mean, you go to a training class and you've got Joe Schmo up at the front going, listen here, everybody else sucks because they say 400 square feet per ton. Now, let me tell you why we're right and how we're about to guess at it as well. We're just more accurately guessing. And so it's kind of this sense of, oh, you just do this one thing, it's going to spit a number out, and that's it. And so and since there's like, when you don't like really watch a house work to where you don't really have like the sense of how the house actually functions, that can be it'll put you in a confidence standpoint that is kind of overconfident. But then when you start watching houses, you start put in an ecobee and start watching houses and watch how they operate, then you'll start to be like, oh wow. Because there's been a bunch of times, like even my parents' house. I mean, Manual J was calling for, I mean, it was about triple the amount to what it actually ended up being based on
Ouch.
runtime. I mean, it was just astronomically off. And so when you see it be that off enough times, then it makes you like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that, just because you felt what it's been like to be wrong so severely that it kind of really dampens that confidence in just the load count.
Yep. Yeah, I think about that the client I was just mentioning where we went really aggressive on a 3,000 square foot house that had been spray foamed. It was 100 years old in Cleveland, and I was off by a ton and a half. And I was aggressive. Like I was like, what? Like this can't be right. But thermostat doesn't lie. Echo Bees are so stinking helpful. If you don't have one, put one on and then watch on design day. See what happens.
There's sort of a
and do that
process
pretty much.
everybody tends to go through as they're starting to lean into the building science side of HVAC. And part of that is watching houses run.
Yes.
And then the other part of that is selling a lot of hybrids. So like the first year you sell hybrids and you watch the houses run. And then the second year you're like, oh shit, those should have all been heat pumps. Because you've seen them run and you realize that they could have all been heat pumps.
That's what you did with your mom's house.
That's what happened with me at my mother's house. I mean, I don't, did that not happen to anybody here? They went to hybrids first and then they're like, oh, this is dumb.
I mean, kind of me, because I'm like, get that shit out of here. We're going to throw in a heat pump.
Well, also, you're in Alabama. It doesn't get cold there.
Except for what it did, you got our 5-degree design weather, and you messaged us like,
Yeah.
keep that crap up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That was no bueno.
No.
It sucks, man. That's the reason I moved south a little ways. Well, one other comment here, and then we should close it up here. So a blower door is a guesstimate to the rate of infiltration, wind and weather changes, so it's all a swag. So yes and no. I mean, the blower door is
That's
a hard number.
You go to CFM 50.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I don't really care about the ACH 50. I want the CFM 50, but it's going to depend. Like this is why we are much more concerned in colder climates, because if you have a leaky house, your heat load goes vertical when it gets really cold. So like something I noticed in looking at energy bills was after a harsh winter, tighter homes, their gas usage would go up 15%. Loose homes, it'd go up 40. Now at relatively normal temperatures, say like 40 degrees, 50 degrees, their loads aren't that different because stack effect isn't taken over. So, and then I've watched a few systems run in those leaky houses, and like they're hitting high limit and they're running, hours and hours and hours on end. So their load is actually higher than what the furnace does. So yeah, they slide. So I mean, the blower door gives you a really good inkling for what's going on, and the wind effect can matter too, depending where you are. So Bob Blanchett lives in Oklahoma, and he never fails to remind me about wind effect. I can guarantee you that. If you want to derail him, just ask him if there's anybody that makes a larger than 17-inch outlet on a furnace, and he's going to be gone for an hour. But he has his things. But the blower door helps you immensely understand what it is. And without that, there's risk. And without energy use, there's risk. So say, Man J gives you plus or minus 3 tons. If you've got blower door, you can get down to plus or minus 1.5, maybe something like that. If you have blower door energy use and set points, you get down to plus or minus 0.5. And at that point, you've got a pretty good idea where you need to be. So it's all of these different pieces that stack up to get that range tighter and tighter. But all of that is out of scope of a free quote. You don't know. Yeah. So you want to show that wide range. And then if they want to do the comfort consult, great. When you want to set it up, I'll come over and we'll figure it out.
What's your tolerance for risk? Because here's your risk. Do you want to narrow this? Do you want to narrow this risk? We have to do some work.
Yep. And actually, past energy use over 5 to 10 years is a better indication for load than a blower door. It can be.
Yeah.
But again, that's where there's a risk of, if it's a leaky house and that load goes vertical, when you're looking at that usage spread out over a month rather than looking at exact runtime and what the blower door is, you may still miss some there. So that's the risk that's involved. So lots of factors, and I'm being nerdy, but
So you need to
Yeah,
know.
you
We
wouldn't
can't
want
just
to. You
focus on
wouldn't
one
want
thing.
to actually size based on energy use, because you could undersize
yeah, you can.
without the blower door, and
Yeah.
so you really. Jeff's run into some actually at his prior job. Jeff was like,
I've got the unit.
and he got to replace all kinds of equipment that was sized wrong to the ductwork, sized wrong to the house, sized wrong. So we've
Yep.
heard lots
It's a
of
challenge.
stories. We should have story night.
Oh, we're going to do that. Actually, next week, I think we might try out Open Mat, which we used to do as just kind of our regular meetings. And I'm just going to flip up here. We'll just have that sitting there for a second. But Open Mat, you want to explain what that is, Tanner?
Yeah. So open mat is kind of anybody that's ever trained in any type of martial arts, especially jiu-jitsu, you're probably familiar with it. It's basically just open mat is the time where it's nothing structured. Everybody just kind of comes in. You can do drills, you can spar, you can do this or that, and just kind of everybody just kind of does their own thing. It's kind of like a free roaming, training session essentially. And so that's the concept, and we just kind of apply that here, where there's not really a exact structure, not exact bullet points that will go down. It's just kind of, we'll just riff off anything and work on things, and we'll just kind of go at it by ear. It'll just be free roaming training.
So I think that can be fun for next week. So I'll come up with a couple of topics to talk about. Honestly, we might riff further on some of the stuff we're talking about on loads here. But come up with a couple of topics, and we'll do more of a round robin, so it doesn't feel like quite as much of a presentation. I keep wanting to move from presentation, then I do it again. So here we are. But this hopefully gave everyone here a really good view.
Is there a report?
What it looks like? A report? What do you mean?
Are you going to run the report?
We were looking at the report.
Oh, was there price ranges in it?
I didn't set it up with price ranges for that one. I just put it in for
Okay.
Starting at.
Okay.
But yeah, you can run ranges.
I have trouble
wasn't trained
seeing
to
it because
dive
it's
into
not that big on my screen, so I can't really.
Need a bigger computer, Ted.
I know I need a bigger
screen.
This thing's huge already, I thought.
We'll get you a better screen. All right. Anybody else have closing thoughts?
Edna Mode says no capes.
Who says no cape? Oh, Edna. Yeah.
No capes.
No capes.
Good night.
No capes and communism don't work.
All right. I can't top that. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you for coming.